Hey guys, the first part of this video is about the legislative process. We're actually going to skip this and we're going to focus on some other things. We are going to get to how our bill becomes a law at the end. So for right now, you are just going to skip over me uh, and ignore this part. There's a couple videos that I want you to watch on how our bill becomes a law. You're going to click on these links and take it from there. Now that you know how a bill becomes a law, there's a check that the legislative branch has over the presidency, and that's the fact that they can override a veto. And if a president vetoes a bill, each House of Congress with a 2/3 vote can override the veto. So they can still get the law passed even if the president vetoes it, but it requires a supermajority vote, 2/3, so 67%. What we're going to look at now and spend a couple days on is the federal budget. The federal budget is complicated. It is a it's a multiple step process. It actually is a year-long process as well. They're going to start planning for the budget early in the year. We're talking February or so. And the intent is to have a new budget in place by October. Now, to be honest, a true federal budget has not been passed in quite a while. To get a federal budget passed is very political. And with the political climate that we are in, it is difficult to pass an actual budget, a complete full budget. But anyway, in the 1970s, Congress created an agency called the Office of Management and Budget, and it formalized the budget process. And basically, the OMB, the Office of Management and Budget, is the president's accountant. And they help the president develop a budget that he would present to Congress. And the OMB considers everything that each department, each independent agency needs or wants. The federal budget begins in October. It's not from January through December. It's actually October 1st through September 30th. And the president develops his plan for the new budget year in February. And so you can see they're working on it months and months in advance. And the House gets it first, and the House will work with, or the House will use the president's budget as a blueprint. And from there, they will take the budget to the different committees that are affected by it, and the committees would write or rewrite their budget. And then what would happen is someone came in. So I will start over. The House of Representatives gets the president's budget, and then they send it to the committees, where the committees work on rewriting it according to their own priorities. It goes to the Senate. The Senate's going to rewrite it according to their priorities. Hopefully they can come up with the same thing and send it to the president for him to sign. However, like I said, that rarely happens, especially these days, for the president to be sent a complete budget. There's a total of about a dozen different budget bills that are required to be passed every year. And those dozen or so bills make up the budget. Where do we get the money to spend in our budget? Here they are. Income taxes, corporate taxes, payroll taxes. Like if you have a job, you're going to see taxes taken out for Social Security and Medicare. There's also tariffs, tax on imported goods, and excise taxes, other forms of taxes. There's estate taxes. So if someone dies and they have a lot of money, they have to pay a portion of that to the federal government. About half, or a little more than half of the money comes from income taxes. Before COVID hit, our federal budget was about $4.4 trillion. Take a look at that number, look at all those zeros. Our revenue was about $3.5 trillion. So $3.5 to $3.7 trillion was our revenue. So we were spending more than what we were bringing in. And with spending, there are some revenue, or there's some expenses that we must spend money on. And we call this mandatory spending, like Social Security benefits, Medicare, and Medicaid. We call these mandatory because we have to spend that money. We have to. It is in a law that says, with Social Security, if you're over a certain age and you've paid into the Social Security system, you will get X amount of dollars every month. And so the government is forced to pay that amount. So we call it mandatory. Anything that's not mandatory is what we call discretionary. Discretionary makes up about 1/3 to 40% of the budget. And that's everything else. Now, you may think that military spending or defense spending is mandatory, but it's not. We don't have to spend money on the military. We don't have to spend money on transportation. We don't have to spend money on national parks. We don't have to spend money on the environment. We don't have to spend money on education. So all that is discretionary. It's at your discretion, at your choosing. And like I said, if the government spends more money than what it brings in, it's going to have a deficit. And the deficit is the difference between spending and revenue. And what the government has to do to make up that difference is that they have to borrow money. They have to get a loan, basically. And all these deficits from every year add up to our national debt. And currently our national debt is about $27 trillion. Yes, trillion, $27 trillion. We're going to do an activity on the federal budget, and we'll spend a couple of days on it because it is important to realize how much money the government brings in and what it spends the money on. Now let's turn our attention to some influences of Congress. One of the terms I want to focus on is gridlock. Gridlock is when there's just so much partisanship, so much vitriol between the two different parties that nothing can get done. It's gridlock. Maybe you've heard of that term in terms of driving, that traffic is just so backed up, no one is moving, not even on the interstate where cars are supposed to be going 70 miles an hour. It's just deadlocked. That's gridlock. And the reason why we have a lot of gridlock now is that the House redistricting, which we've talked about, has basically created one-party rule. In these one-party areas, they can elect a more extreme or radical, either a radical conservative or an extreme liberal, to that office. And they have less incentive to compromise because the party, that their district is so one-sided, they're not going to compromise. They don't see a need to compromise. And so the political parties' ideas get farther and farther apart. And it's harder to get back to that middle of bipartisanship. And with the elections, with the campaign seasons, with everything going on, Republicans and Democrats are growing farther and farther apart. And it's common to see party line votes where all the Democrats vote one way and all the Republicans vote the other way. And so this party line voting, where instead of finding common ground, it's all about scoring points. We've talked about redistricting before, and we've talked about it in class with the election. And gerrymandering is a term related to the redistricting. That's the drawing of really illogical or weird-looking district boundaries. And that's done to give an advantage to one political party. And like I said, we've talked about this before with Missouri. And the party that controls the state legislature draws the boundaries in a way that favors them, the majority. And we call these safe seats or safe districts. There are some areas that are called swing districts or swing seats where it's a toss-up between Republicans and Democrats. Each political party throughout the United States has about 180 safe seats that are pretty much guaranteed to go one way or the other. That's 360. And that means only about 75 seats in the House of Representatives are really up for grabs. 75 out of 435 are truly competitive seats. The rest are drawn in such a way to make one side have pretty much a guaranteed chance of winning it. I'm going to show you a website real fast that shows you some gerrymandered districts. Now, let me see if there. Okay. If you take a look at this is in Maryland. And this red line, squiggly line, that's one district. That is one district. Excuse me, that was North Carolina. Here's another Maryland district. You know, districts are supposed to be compact and as condensed as possible. But take a look at this. Look at that district. Here's another one. This is drawn to benefit one political party. It's drawn in such a way that there's enough of one party's votes in here to guarantee that party's win. Here's another one. You can see it doesn't make sense for it to be drawn this way, and there's no other explanation other than it's political. They want to get people right there, but they don't want these people. They want these people. Here's another one. You would think, why they just take this area, this red, and just put it up in here and draw these, make it a boxier area. That would make more sense. But no, they're gerrymandered. Here's another one. It's like, why don't they want this spot right here? Well, this spot has the other political party in it, which they don't want. They want to draw a safe seat. Here's another one. And another one. It's like everything but this big area in the middle. And here's one more. Gerrymandered districts are easy to see because they're so obvious. They don't make any sense. They're illogical boundaries. And that's because of gerrymandering. And each one of the political parties wants an advantage there. Here's some Supreme Court cases that we're going to look at later in the week: Baker versus Cart and Shaw versus Reno. This pretty much sums up the legislative branch. I'm sorry about the interruptions earlier in the video, but that's what happens when you try to do a video during class or during lunchtime when people come in. Anyway, if you have any questions, just ask. Until next time, have a good day.